me 2 seconds. Okay.
Hello everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you all on with us for our second instalment of our Cosmos webinar with our lovely friends over at Cosmos. We've done one before. We had excellent feedback from our previous one, so we thought, let's do another one. Let's bring them back and get some more people involved. So we're really excited to introduce you guys to Fiona and Rob today. And they're going to have a chat with us and continue our conversation about how Cosmos is revolutionizing reporting for our customers, but also how they can provide a valuable investment to your BC solution. So I'm just going to pass over to these guys and they're going to talk you through, and then we'll take some questions at the end. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Cam. Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us today. Rob and I are very pleased to be back again, working with our amazing partner, Sci-Net. And we have both, if anybody doesn't know us, we've been in the reporting and dynamic space for many, many years. But we are very excited to be showcasing how you can accelerate your reporting with Cosmos. So let's have a little look at the agenda before we get started. So first of all, we're going to, well, the session is going to be running about 45 minutes, just so everybody knows, and we're going to spend the first few minutes talking through what reporting options are on the market today for Business Central Cloud users. Then we're going to cover on the why so many customers today are choosing Cosmos for the cloud reporting. Then we're going to touch on the key product components of Cosmos before we then jump into a live demo with Rob and an exclusive sneak peek just for the Sci-Net customers today on up and coming new release of Cosmos, which is coming out in August. And as Cam just mentioned, we will be having a Q&A session. So please don't be shy. No question's a bad question. Please pop that into our Q&A or chat section, and we will be happy to pick those questions up at the very end. So I think without further ado, let's pass over to Rob.
Good, thank you very much, Fiona, and it's really nice to see so many people on the call. Just to reiterate again, yeah, please ask questions because we'll leave a few minutes at the end of the session today to kind of address those, so that's always really good to do. So first thing that we said we would just quickly run through is basically when you have Business Central in the cloud, what are your options when it comes to reporting? And of course, Business Central itself has got some native reporting. Of course, that comes out of the box, and there's some stock reports that you have available to you. But I think the downsides are that when customers require reports written for them specifically, it requires specific development skills, which a lot of customers haven't got, and customers really want to have a tool that they can be self-serving with. And I think maybe, yeah, because of that, I mean, Microsoft pushed Power BI quite a bit. And just to reiterate, Power BI is not a Business Central specific tool. It's a data visualization platform that can hook into lots of different data sources. And I would say that it's probably a bit more complicated to set up than most customers realize. I think Power BI is, I normally describe like a game of two halves. You've got the data modeling side of things, and the way that Power BI really likes to have data is very different to how Business Central actually stores data itself. So you have to kind of have the data in a dimensional model as opposed to how Business Central stores data in a relational database. But that's very typical of most ERPs as well. So I think that once people have got the data into the correct shape, it's reasonably straightforward to build the visualizations. But I think it's the data side where we've seen in the past most customers kind of hitting a roadblock and that type of thing. And then of course, I mean, Cosmos is built specifically for Business Central in the cloud. It's hosted in the cloud as well, and all of our reporting is executed away from your local machine, so it doesn't basically slow down any resources on your machine. And we basically take the approach that we have a platform that lends itself well to reporting in Excel and Power BI, both from a consistent and governed data set, which means that you're displaying similar results that kind of tie up between those two environments. And I'll show you an example of that today. So we've basically taken the sting out of the tail, if you like, with regards to the effort required for Power BI. So you are able to plug Power BI straight into the Cosmos data model without really having to worry about more of the technical data side of things, and it just leaves customers to build out visualizations in a much easier way. So our solution is all-encompassing across Excel reporting and Power BI visualizations. But Fiona, if you don't mind, if I just ask you, what is your kind of experiences or feedback as to what people give across these different options that people have?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we've been working with a lot of Business Central users for some time. And typically a lot of businesses have multiple companies that they need to report from. And the challenge you have around with Business Central and Power BI is that it's a one company reporting aspect. Plus, you do have to understand the underlying tables and fields typically within Business Central and from Power BI. And of course, for a typical business user, that's really challenging. So we're seeing a lot of customers who are coming over who have had challenges around either getting data out of Business Central, but also been able to utilize Power BI in the right way. And this is really why how Cosmos can lend to the best for business users and don't necessarily have to be a technical expert within the business to be able to use the product.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. I think the multi-company part is really important because when you're using the Business Central native reporting, or indeed if you're pointing Power BI back at Business Central, it's very much one company at a time. So you're probably used to Business Central, you log into one company, out and log into another. So if you are an organization that needs to consolidate financial reporting across multiple companies together, in fact, I was speaking to somebody at Sci-Net just yesterday, and they've got one customer with two different Business Central environments. And I had an inquiry, is it possible to pull that all into one instance of Cosmos? The answer is yes. And then you can run consolidated reporting against different companies across multiple Business Central environments as well. So there's a lot of options available. So one of the major advantages of Cosmos is that, as mentioned, none of the reporting execution actually gets carried out on your local machine. So I think with some traditional Excel add-in solutions, which will maybe better suited when people were running on-prem ERPs where they actually had a server in the office, the actual reports were executing on their local machines, and that process actually slows right down when you're running against an ERP in the cloud. So we've basically changed the whole kind of architecture and the approach to reporting, and actually we run all of our services on the Azure cloud, and you can think of that right next door to where Business Central lives, and that's really how we can get speed, performance, and a lot of scalability to particularly when you've got lots of users running reports simultaneously. So the main components of Cosmos, first off is the Cosmos portal. So like Business Central, this is a web-based client that people log into pretty much for every operation, whether it's creating new report templates, editing an existing one, just running a report on demand, whether you want to schedule and distribute a report, if you want to archive or anything that you need to do in the system. This is all done in a really friendly web-based portal, which we'll take a look at. We've got a very quick time to value. So customers that install Cosmos are up and running in 30 minutes. So in that time, we can connect Cosmos to your Azure tenant, to your Business Central. We can get you up and running with a really comprehensive data model that covers finance, AP, AR, sales, purchasing, and inventory. And then there is a suite of 30 reports that you can get up and running with immediately. When you're designing reports yourselves, you would be using a report editor. So this is a modern Office add-in. So it sits both in Excel Desktop and also Excel Online. So it works identically between those two areas. So you can work in the platform that you prefer. But one other advantage to that is that it also makes Cosmos completely cross-platform as well. So within your IT infrastructure. If you're having any users that are running with Apple Macs or something like that, then doesn't matter, because everything can be done web-based with the Cosmos report editor, as well as editing reports, that type of thing, or running a report and using the drill down capability, that type of thing. So now, because we're reporting, I mean, Fiona mentioned about the complexity, if you like, of the Business Central data structure. There's something like 2,000 tables, 25,000 fields within a Business Central database, and it's actually quite complicated for business users. So what we do with Cosmos is basically extract that data, we remodel it into a much more friendlier format, and we also build relationships between tables. So when you're building reports, Cosmos kind of understands, if you like, a lot of links between the tables, and we've kind of unpicked and put the data into a much better structure, which lends itself both for reporting in Excel, but also for Power BI. So you can basically point Power BI directly to the Cosmos data model. Power BI and Excel are really, in my opinion, just two different styles as to how you want to present the data. So do you want something that is more of a structured report, maybe for financial reports, that type of thing in Excel? Or of course with Power BI, it gives you a much more visual experience of your data through charts, graphs, that type of thing. And the whole model is basically multi-dimensional. So whether you want to look at something like sales by company or by salesperson, by year, or that type of thing, in whatever combination you like, it gives you a lot more kind of interaction. But again, the value with Cosmos is that you're reporting either in Excel or Power BI based off of the same set of data, so you can be sure that the results kind of marry up between the two. Okay, so what I'm going to do is spend some time in the actual product itself. So we'll just take a look around, and as Fiona has mentioned, just later on in the session, I'll give you a kind of sneak preview to some updates that we've actually that we'll be releasing soon. So I'm going to log into the portal as things kind of stand currently, and I'm just going to switch directly to the reporting section. So this is where the users are managed, and in fact, very quickly, in fact, while we're here, I'll just add a quick user into the system just so you can see how this is integrated to the Azure Active Directory. So that user was looked up from the directory, and I can just drop the user in, and then I've just added a light user. So you can see at the top here, we've got full users and then we've got light users. The main difference between them is that a light user can just come in and run a report template that has already been designed, whereas a full user can actually edit the templates, they can edit the data model and do lots of other fun stuff within the system. So, but what I'll do here is just jump straight into the reporting section. And today I'm going to focus on batch reporting. So this is something where customers of ours see a lot of value. So I'm going to run this report to begin with, just to kind of show you an example of a template that can be used for batch reporting. And this particular report template is designed, I mean, I could filter here by salesperson code if I wanted to, but basically the design of this report is basically going to start to produce one worksheet within Excel for every single individual salesperson, and then on each sheet it will break down the customers and months to see what they've basically purchased within a particular year. So we'll just give that a second to run, and then we're going to look at this, which is a batch distribution template, which allows us to basically run the distribution either on demand or at a specific point in time. So we can see here that this is just coming to the end of finalizing. So this is basically run, if you like, 7 or 8 different reports all in one go. And if I just open that up so we can take a look at the output, what you'll see we've got here is basically one sheet per salesperson, and each sheet is basically broken down the customers that belongs to that salesperson with all of the sales broken out into months. I get a lot of questions like, is it possible to work either in Excel online, like I've just shown you there, or is it possible to work in Excel desktop? And indeed it is. So normally I show this in Excel online because that's really a major advantage of the tool, but I'll just hop here. But just to explain that this add-in works identically between the two environments. Now, if you're a light user, you can use the drill down functionality. So if I wanted to see how do these sales for this particular customer for June 2024, how are they basically made up? A light user and a full user has got the ability to view and then run a drill down report. So an aggregate, which is the sum of all of the sales transactions that make up that number, basically is made up of lots of different transactions. And then what the drill down report will do is come back with every single transaction that makes up that 28,000 sale for June 24 and that particular customer number. So you get basically every single field on the transaction table here. So you could do some ad hoc pivot analysis or something like that from this point forwards. So when we come to distribution, well, in fact, what I'm going to do is let's open this in Excel desktop just so we can see roughly how this report is built first, and then I explain how the distribution is built. So if we just come into the design template, so the add-in that you're seeing here on the right hand side basically works in two different ways. What we saw previously is the result of a report being run, where you can see some context about the drill down, and what we're seeing here is the add-in in a different mode, if you like, which is for designing the actual template. So the template that we're seeing here is in effect the collapsed version of what we saw when we ran the report. So we've got just 7 different tools available to us when we design report templates. The one that we're focused on at the moment is report options. So when I ran a report, it was asking me, do I want to add filters for a particular year or a particular set of salespeople, that type of thing. This sheet lists function is what builds out one sheet within my report per salesperson code. This isn't necessarily restricted to salespeople. This could split out companies or department codes. It could be salespeople. It could be item categories. It could be certain customers that fit within certain customer groups. It doesn't really matter to Cosmos what the data is. It's just more around the principle of how these functions basically work. These are range lists, and this is basically the dynamic content. So if I click on select on this range list, it basically snaps to this area of cells that get repeated down the page for each customer. And then in the opposite direction, it's this range of cells that expands out to the right, which includes all of the months of the year. So that's really where we were seeing the output that I basically showed you. Now, we are supported by AI, of course, as our most modern tools. And if I want to do something like this, right, how do I set up batch reporting? What this will basically do, I can ask our friend here, Captain Cosmos, questions in natural language. This is hooked up to our support site, which has got a whole heap of knowledge-based articles, free training videos, that type of thing. So I can just ask a question. It will come back with a suggested article about how to carry out a particular task. So there is typically on these support articles a short walkthrough video, which is like a bite-sized video, and then a walkthrough step-by-step process as to how you would fill the templates out to enable batch scheduling. So I've set this up already, so I can basically show you an example of this. So this is a batch file. So I do have the opportunity, if I'm only setting one single schedule, I can do that directly on the report here, where I can set my report options and an email recipient. The recipients just need to be a valid email address. It doesn't need to be a licensed Cosmos user. But if I want to schedule reports in bulk, I can use one of these batch templates. And we're seeing a lot of customers using this because it handles, it basically replaces a lot of manual processes within finance teams or operational teams within an organization. So what this is basically doing is running the same report multiple times, but basically adding a different filter for a different salesperson code. So if you imagine I basically want to have that same report like I had split out by salespeople codes, but email a different person. Now, because this is a test environment, I'm the recipient of every single one. Okay, but then what I'll start to do is receive emails based on the distribution. Now, with these schedules, you can either set a schedule to run on a weekly basis, a daily basis, or whatever, or you could just set a schedule to basically run now. So that's going to start off this batch distribution, and then in short time my inbox is going to start to fill up because I'm the recipient for every single salesperson. But the idea is that each person would receive a report that was specific to themselves, that just had their particular sheet on it. So so you might think of examples where you might be able to use that type of approach if you need to make department expense reports or that type of thing. That's the type of use case that we would be using this for. So for the skeptics among you, I'm not going to show you my inbox, but I'm just going to drag across here, and you can see that this is the current date and time just to the right here, and that I've got my inbox filling up now with lots of different reports. And if I just open one of those, you'll see that now I've just got the sales here for Lenny Reed for 2024, and then so Lenny would be the recipient of this type of report distribution, and that would be just relevant to that one particular salesperson. So hopefully that gives you an idea as to the types of operations that we can carry out with batch distribution. So I'll just close this down and basically come back slightly. Now, we spoke about Power BI. So this is again a really popular request that we get for people to display sales information. So what I've shown you is more of a structured report where we get the distribution capabilities from Cosmos. But let's say we want to build something like this. And as mentioned, Power BI is a game of two halves. And let's start to actually look at the data behind this. If I just switch to the table view, what we see in Power BI is all of the different tables of information that are relevant for a sales dashboard that is coming directly from Cosmos. So here, this table here called sales transactions, what we've already done in Cosmos is merge all of the tables from Business Central into one simpler table, which is just called sales transactions. So we've got inside of here, for example, sales credit memos, sales invoices that would otherwise be stored in separate tables within Business Central. And there is a header table and a lines table for each one. All of our item value entries and cost entries come from a different table. So there's about 15 different tables altogether that contribute towards this sales transactions table, which is built as the basis for our analysis here. When I just switch to the model view, which is quite small, so I'll just expand this slightly. This is a classic star schema, and this is really how Power BI likes to have data fed to it, which is very different to how Business Central stores data within its database. So what we make easy for customers is we provide these data model templates. You can download them directly from our website, and we have a number available for the different functional areas that we support out of the box. So this is a sales example. So we have our 15 different Business Central tables that are contributing towards our sales transactions. And then on the outside of this data model is all of our dimension tables. So to put that simply, how do we want to represent our sales? We want it split by item, by date, by salesperson. These are the types of things where people want to segment the data to see where the trends are within an organization. So when I come back to my report view, I've got the flexibility now to freely select whoever I want on the salesperson. I could come here and choose a specific year. So just to focus on a particular year's worth of sales, I could focus on just items of a specific item category. So, and this gives you a whole lot of flexibility. So, but the important part, which is really important, is just to make sure that the data that we are seeing here is consistent with the data that we're pushing out with our Excel reports. So if we just compare that, so Lenny Reed for 2024 has sold 3.688 million. If I just minimize this and go back to Cosmos and just come back to my report that we ran, and then come to LR, which is for Lenny Reed, and just come down, I've got exactly the same number there. And that is not a coincidence. That is purely because we are using Excel and Power BI just to present the data in the style that we require. Do we want visual tools that we can interact with, or do we want a structured report? But we're pointing back to the same set of data, which is how we get this consistency. We see it time and time again where people are using different reporting tools. Each person is connected to the raw data in their own way. They've implemented their own set of logic. They've come up with their version of what they think sales are. And then you've got people walking into a sales meeting. One person thinks sales is one number. One person thinks sales is another number. So this gives you a really consistent and governed version of the truth for the organization that everybody can rely on, and it's based on the same set of tools. So other things that we get asked now with regards to what we can connect to in terms of data, we get lots of questions. Well, okay, so what happens if we've got multiple companies? So Cosmos can connect to a Business Central environment, and it would basically see all of the companies that exist within that environment. So all you need to do is pick the companies that you want to include inside the data model. Down here, I've got another Business Central environment. So if you imagine the scenario that I was speaking to Josh actually yesterday, was when you have a customer, for example, that might have a UK Business Central environment and a US one. How can we connect to two? So this is a second Business Central environment that we can connect to, and we're pulling the data from specific companies from different Business Central environments into a single data model for Cosmos that we can report from. Another question we get is, well, what about if I'm using other products? So Sci-Net have got a lot of customers that use LS Retail or other vertical solution add-ons for Business Central. And those solutions are built up by extending the standard Business Central table model to be more specific for, in this case, it's for retail. So we can basically connect to any single table and field via our connector. So if you see these tables here that are prefixed with like 3 letters, we can basically see every single table and field that is specific to the extensions that are inside your Business Central environment, regardless of whether that's something that Sci-Net has written for you directly, or whether it's an add-on solution that you're using like LS Retail or another product that's come from the AppSource store. Okay, so we can extend the data model out in this way. Plus, it might be the case that you have other data sources. So in this case here, this sales teams data source is coming from a static Excel spreadsheet that I'm bringing into Cosmos, and I'm appending that onto the Business Central data. So we get customers asking, well, actually, we're upgrading to Business Central in the cloud, but we're coming from an older nav system. We've got some transactions there that we don't want to lose. Well, that's a good use case for being able to bring the older transactions into Cosmos, and we can just join on the newer transactions from Business Central SaaS. So you can have the best of both worlds there. You don't necessarily have to fill up your old ERP, or sorry, fill up your new ERP with older transactions, but you can actually bring historical information into Cosmos instead. Another different use case would be, well, what if we're running budgets, but actually outside of the system? We run budgets in Excel, we don't put them into Business Central. That's another use case as to how we can bring data into Cosmos from an external source as well. So hopefully that just gives you some ideas. We would certainly love to have a conversation with you about what your specific requirements are. In terms of access to the different styles of reporting, so we've seen the Excel reports here, but also once you've designed something inside Power BI and published that up to the Power BI service, we actually complete the loop here by connecting to the Power BI service with Cosmos, and this is the same dashboard that I showed you, but this is now content that's being surfaced inside the Cosmos portal, but from the Power BI service. So it just gives us a nice one-stop shop with the same user experience here for kind of filtering, that type of thing that you would get usually in a Power BI dashboard. So people can come into the Cosmos portal, they've got their Excel reports in one place, the Power BI content in another place, and they can use that really easily. To reiterate as well, the multi-company data model is something that is quite unique to Cosmos. Business Central reporting is very much one company at a time, but if I had multiple companies here, then this is just another dimension basically in the data model. So if I wanted to see results for one company or the other, then this is just a case of just selecting the company alongside the selection of any of the other dimension codes that I have available here. Okay, I think that's probably just about everything that I want to show within this. So I'm going to just switch up and look at just go back to PowerPoint, because one thing that we are quite excited to let everybody know is that our engineering team have been very busy working in the background at quite a major release to some improvements to the Cosmos portal. Just one example of that, you probably saw where the reports were organized. They're not in folders. So we've got lots of requests coming from customers. Well, can we put the reports into folders and that type of thing? Well, actually, they've been beavering away very hard. So this is a list of all of the new features. So we have a major release of the Cosmos portal, which is due out in August, that adds a whole raft of new capabilities in reporting, administration, and also the data management. So this is a much better kind of refreshed. Just to focus on some of those, folder management, like I was just explaining, you will now be able to organize your reports within folder structures, but that will also completely mirror how the folder structure is within your SharePoint sites as well. And also today, when we run our report distribution, the only mechanism that we have today is to attach an email to, an Excel attachment to an email. That's what the recipient will get, but you will be able to set up specific SharePoint sites, maybe one for each department, one for finance, one for sales, and then you can make that the target of the scheduled report outputs. We're also making Cosmos multi-environment as well, very much like Business Central. So although you're able to pull together data from different Business Central environments, some customers might want to keep their companies and environments separate, that type of thing. There are possibilities for people like Sci-Net to write and publish their own IP in a gallery that you can yourselves have access to. We've got lots of improvements to the data management side of things as well. For example, you will now be able to explore and see data from the data model directly inside in the portal instead of writing a report. So let's just go in and just take a look at some of the new things. But I will say this is still very much in development. So what you're about to see is not necessarily the finished article, but it will give you an idea as to how things are going to look. So what we're seeing, just first things first here, is probably more for IT administration, but this is where we would manage the multiple environments per tenant. It might be, like I say, that you want to separate a different data model for different companies. It might be that you're implementing a new add-on for Business Central and you want a separate environment to write reports or test new features. But this is a centralized environment for us to be able to add users. We can centrally manage data sources. and we can use packages to basically transfer information between those environments. And then inside the Cosmos portal itself, this is a home page. So I've got a couple of reports and folders favorited here. If I go to report templates, this shows you really more or less what I was explaining, where it's now possible to store report templates maybe in department folders, and also I can view that on SharePoint as well. So what we see within Cosmos mirrors exactly what's being saved in the background to SharePoint. So inside here I've got a customer report, for example, and then if I navigate to the same thing on the Cosmos portal here, I could then see that I've got traceability for all of the changes that were made to this report. So I can see every single step that somebody has made a change to the report. They can check the report in, they can add some notes and keep track of everything there that has been done. We've got similar integration to Power BI, so we'll be able to see our workspaces within Power BI. From a data perspective, we'll have lots more visibility about how long the pipelines have run for, a lot more insight into logging information, that type of thing. Also, the data model as well. Any changes will have tracked changes where we can add messages and that type of thing. And we've also got a brand new interface which brings onto one screen the data model from end to end on one screen, that we can basically collapse each section. So we start on the left here with the data sources. This is our source table. So I've just got the one set up here, which is a customer table. So these will be the fields that we are including. We can add transformation steps as we can at the moment. We'll be able to structure these in a much better way than we can currently. And then we've got this kind of interface here where we can collapse the screen, and this is basically a reporting table that we've got. So it basically allows you to manage the whole end-to-end data model within one screen and one interface. Data Surfer is where we can look at details directly on the screen. So this interface is not quite finalized yet, but just an example of how we can see records directly within the actual portal itself. So it's like a SQL query tool built into the environment. So hopefully this just gives you an idea of the new layout and what's coming. For existing customers, there will be notifications of things coming by email, just to advise you of timing and to when these new features and updates will be available to you. But there's a lot of testing going on in the background, so all of this is being run in parallel to people's usual interface at the moment, to make sure that we have a seamless transition from one environment to another. But that's a sneak preview to what we have coming up. Just a couple of things just to say, by the way, if you have any questions that you've thought of along the way, please just type those in just now. We'll be taking those in a couple of minutes, so we'll leave 5 minutes for that. But just a couple of other things to add is that Cosmos is quickly being recognized as a reporting tool by some software recognition companies for value, for customer support, and for features, that type of thing. So there's a blog here. Maybe that could be shared out with the a follow-up to the webinar, but certainly the product is being actively developed, very well received within the market, and being recognized rightly. And also, of course, we trust AI these days, right? If we ask AI, okay, what's the best reporting tool for Business Central, then Google AI says that it's Cosmos. So obviously, don't believe us. If you ask AI these days, then you can get an answer from that, hopefully. So as mentioned, we said we'd leave 5 minutes for questions. So I'm going to stop talking now just for a moment, and I think, Camilla, are you hosting the questions? Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Good.
Going to have a little look, see what questions we've got come in, and ask a few of our own as well, I think. So we've got a question that's come in, which is there much of a time lag between a change being made in Business Central and it appearing in the Cosmos data model?
Yeah, so we update every single day automatically. We're adding more scheduled updates with the new portal that's being released. But there's no restriction at all as to how many times you could run that process during the day. And just to mention that we only load the incremental transactions from Business Central into Cosmos, so you can think of that like a trickle feed into Cosmos of the changes. So when we run the pipeline, it's normally a fairly quick process to update Cosmos with the most recent data from Business Central. So
lovely, thank you. Can we have multiple reports running at once in Cosmos?
Yeah, absolutely. You can, because all of the resources basically scale out horizontally. So you can think of that like if 5 people all run a report at the same time, each 5 of those reports would run on its own kind of mini set of resources. So there is no concept of the reports basically being queued up. So if you run a report, whether you're the only user or there's lots of users within the system doing something at the same time, then you should see very similar results.
Lovely. And is that going to make the system run slow?
Would
Cosmos make the system run slow if you have multiple reports running at the same time?
Cosmos has no strain, if you like, on Business Central. I think that's the question. So if you're running lots of Cosmos reports, does that slow down Business Central? So no, this kind of incremental feed that we have coming into Cosmos basically just happens once, whereas with some traditional reporting tools, every single report run by every single user kind of hits the transactional system, Business Central, and then that can have an impact. But we keep the amount that we touch Business Central right down to a minimum, so we only extract the data, and then that data is now up to date, and that's the same data model that everybody reports from, be that from a Cosmos report or from Power BI, for example. So it's got minimal impact on the source system.
Wonderful, thank you very much. A couple of questions coming in about licensing and cost. So I'll start with the first one, which is, what is the difference in cost between a full and light user?
I'm going to ask Fiona that, because Fiona deals with all things commercial.
Oh, Fiona, you're on mute.
Sorry, there was me about to chat without it. Well, I was going to pass it over to you guys because obviously the partner, but just to give everybody awareness. So a full user for an annual we've got a very special pricing at the moment, which I'm going to share, get Cam and the team can send out to you. But one full user, which comes with your base package, is 2490, and a full user is 480 a year. Or you can buy a light user for 150 a year. But if you do need any quotes or proposals, then please speak to Vicky and Cam on that.
It's probably worth mentioning as well that you don't have to be a Business Central user to be a Cosmos user. So if all people are doing is basically consuming data from Business Central or the other data sources that are coming into Cosmos, then you don't need to be a Business Central user at all. And you don't even need to be a Cosmos user to be a recipient of one of the scheduled reports that comes out via email, for example. But you do have to be, like the drill down function that I use, you have to be at least a light user in order to use that capability. So hopefully that kind of helps explain end to end what all of the licensing requirements are. So.
And in terms of how licenses work, so you can do those annually or monthly.
Yeah.
So one of those questions we had on the list was, how do the licensing work? Is that annual or?
Absolutely. So you can have annually on a 30-day term, or you can purchase an annual subscription, and the special 50% lifetime discount is attached for annual subscriptions. Well, we have a lot of customers who sometimes want to go the monthly to begin with, try it out, and then take advantage of the annual subscription on the back of that. But please have a chat with Cam and Vicky if you'd like some more information.
Yeah, perfect. We've got another question regarding BI licensing. So what Power BI licensing is required to enable integration with Cosmos?
So, so Power BI licensing is separate to Cosmos. So users would have to be licensed for Power BI. The most common license for that is a pro license, which is like less than £10 a month, something like that. But then for Cosmos, it's an optional add-in. So per license, so this is not per user, it's per platform. There is a connector license, which is an optional that you can purchase, which basically opens up an API for Cosmos that you can connect to with Power BI. So that just allows you to consume the Cosmos data model inside Power BI, or actually, I mean, we sell it as a Power BI connector, but it's basically an open OData endpoint. So you can actually use other software solutions with that as well. But generally speaking, most Microsoft Business Central customers will use Power BI. So that's why we label that as a Power BI connector. So.
We've got one final question, haven't we, Cam?
We have indeed. So this question is relating to when running inventory reports, would there be any table locks likely within Business Central?
No, because we're not because we've basically taken the data from Business Central already. When we report from Cosmos, we're reporting from a data model that's got it's Business Central data, but it's not affecting the source system at all. So
perfect.
So no is the answer.
So no is the answer to that. Yep, absolutely. Wonderful. So that's all the questions that we've got listed from you guys. Don't think there's any more that have popped in whilst I was listening. Nope. I think that's everything that's come in. Thanks, guys.
So Rob, just the last slide, and then I think just to wrap everything up.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thanks for your questions. I mean, please feel free to throw more questions over to us. I'm sure the team will be happy to share our details out as well if you'd like to send them directly, or please just go through Cam and Vicky and the Sci-Net team. And yeah, we look forward to maybe touching base very soon. Thanks very much for your time, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.